television changed forever on one night in 1974. Before that moment, the small screen had trained Americans to think in 30-minute bursts and one-hour episodes. Then something radical happened. Networks realized they could tell stories that demanded your attention for 8 consecutive nights straight. By 1977, half of America was glued to Roots. What you're about to discover are the forgotten giants that built this empire. 1. QB7, 1974. Before Roots broke records, QB7 shattered assumptions about what television could accomplish. This sprawling 6.5-hour courtroom drama adapted Leon Uris's best-selling novel into the most ambitious project ABC had ever attempted. Anthony Hopkins played a Polish physician suing a writer, portrayed by Ben Gazzara, over accusations of Nazi war crimes. The production screamed magnitude. Filmed over 2 nights, it dominated conversation water coolers nationwide because people actually had to choose whether they'd commit their evening to watching it. Critics praised Hopkins's measured intensity and the way the script refused to sensationalize Holocaust themes. ABC marketed this thing relentlessly, calling it the network's most unprecedented undertaking. What made QB7 revolutionary wasn't just its runtime. It was proving that audiences possessed the patience and hunger for serialized narratives that treated viewers as intellectually serious beings. This miniseries became the blueprint every network copied for the next decade. 2. Captains and the Kings, 1976. NBC launched this literary adaptation as the cornerstone of its bestsellers anthology series, and it became an instant ratings smash with viewers hungry for generational sagas. Richard Jordan commanded every frame as Joseph Armagh, an Irish immigrant whose ruthless climb toward political domination reflected post-Watergate skepticism about the American dream. Nick Nolte proved his bankability during this era, while Jane Seymour captured audiences' attention despite her youth. Taylor Caldwell's novel provided themes of moral compromise and corrupting power that resonated with a nation questioning its institutions. The 8-episode production spent lavishly on authenticity, using historic Los Angeles locations to depict late 19th century and early 20th century America. Critics marveled at Jordan's restraint, his ability to convey ambition through quiet glances rather than bombast. The miniseries earned Patty Duke an Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actress and demonstrated that American immigrant narratives could carry prestige dramas. It proved the format worked best when adapting sprawling novels with multiple generations and moral dimensions. 3. Rich Man, Poor Man, 1976. This miniseries did something revolutionary. It spread itself across 12 weekly episodes instead of consecutive nights, essentially inventing the slow-burn, serialized television format that would dominate streaming decades later. Nick Nolte exploded into stardom as Tom, Jordache, a blue-collar boxer whose trajectory contrasted sharply with his corporate-climbing brother Rudy, played by Peter Strauss. The series followed their parallel lives from post-World War II through the 1960s, giving viewers time to genuinely invest in character nuance. Susan Blakely composed Julia Prescott's journey across Irwin Shaw's adaptation, covering emotional terrain most dramas ignored. The ratings held week after week because Nolte's improvisational genius and Strauss's buttoned-up control created genuine tension viewers craved. Networks observed this success and rushed to adapt more literary works, essentially catalyzing the miniseries boom. Critics called it a soapy sensation, but audiences recognized it as legitimate entertainment about class struggle and brotherhood betrayal. The impact extended beyond ratings. It elevated television drama as a viable alternative to theater. 4. Eleanor and Franklin, 1976. ABC aired this over 2 consecutive nights in January 1976, and it became an instant classic because Jane Alexander and Edward Herrmann possessed something irreplaceable: genuine chemistry that transcended the miniseries format's typical melodrama. Adapted from Joseph P. Lash's Pulitzer Prize-winning biography, the film retraced Eleanor and Franklin's complicated relationship from childhood through his election as president. Harriman navigated the tricky character work of portraying FDR's privilege and vulnerability without indulging in caricature. Alexander's performance transcended prosthetics and period costumes, creating a portrait of intellectual awakening and resilience. Director Daniel Petrie brought meticulous historical accuracy to every detail, from costume recreations to accurate set designs that replicated Roosevelt homes flawlessly. The miniseries swept awards season, securing 11 Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Television Movie and Outstanding Supporting Actress. John Barry's score elevated the intimate moments between scenes. What mattered most was the emotional authenticity. This wasn't history treating figures as monuments, but as humans navigating personal betrayal, illness, and moral evolution. Eleanor's discovery of Franklin's affair with Lucy Mercer felt genuinely painful rather than soapy. 5. From Here to Eternity, 1979, NBC remaking the 1953 classic as a three-part miniseries seemed audacious, but the network assembled an extraordinary cast, including Andy Griffith, Kim Basinger, Peter Boyle, and Natalie Wood, that validated the gamble. The story centered on American infantrymen stationed in Hawaii during 1941, each facing personal demons before the Pearl Harbor bombing shattered their trajectories. Natalie Wood delivered a performance that earned her the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Television Series Drama. Critics recognized her ability to carry emotional weight while surrounded by male-dominated action sequences. The miniseries became successful enough that it spawned an actual, weekly soap opera that attempted to continue the narrative. The production values matched theatrical releases, with explosive sequences that justified the extended runtime. What critics appreciated was the way the adaptation honored James Jones's novel without treating characters as caricatures. Each soldier possessed contradictions, ambitions, and flaws that miniseries television was uniquely positioned to explore across 3 nights. 6. Holocaust, the story of the family Weiss, 1978. This 4-part historical drama took an astonishing risk. It told the Holocaust through the fictional Weiss family's experience in Berlin during the Third Reich's rise. Meryl Streep, James Woods, and Michael Moriarty anchored the ensemble cast, bringing extraordinary emotional intelligence to material that demanded both restraint and unflinching honesty. ABC worried the cruelty seemed too horrific and nearly censored the production. The network insisted on including sympathetic Nazi characters to avoid complete audience alienation. Critics and audiences responded with surprising intensity because the miniseries refused to treat Holocaust history as abstract atrocity. It placed viewers inside moments where ordinary people confronted impossible choices between survival and morality. Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel criticized the production as historically inaccurate and offensive, creating productive cultural debate rather than dismissing the work entirely. The miniseries profoundly influenced West German audiences, sparking national conversations about reckoning with Nazi history. Despite the controversy, it demonstrated television's capacity to tackle genocide without exploitation. Moriarty won an Emmy for his nuanced portrayal of a Nazi officer, recognizing the miniseries' commitment to avoiding cardboard villainy. 7. The Awakening Land, 1978. Elizabeth Montgomery commanded this 4-hour historical drama as Sayward Luckett, a pioneer heroine traversing the American frontier's brutal realities across decades. Adapted from Conrad Richter's novel series, the miniseries followed frontier settlement from wilderness through statehood. Montgomery demonstrated range beyond her bewitched reputation, tackling themes of female resilience, economic survival, and cultural transformation. Hal Holbrook provided grounding masculine presence without overshadowing Montgomery's narrative authority. The production spared no expense recreating historical authenticity. Costumes, sets, and dialogue attempted historical fidelity while remaining emotionally resonant. Critics praised the miniseries' refusal to romanticize frontier life. Instead, it depicted genuine hardship, difficult choices, and women's invisible labor sustaining civilization. The narrative spanned generations, requiring Montgomery to age throughout the production, a technique that reinforced both personal transformation and historical progression. Television rarely offered this scope for female-centered narratives. The miniseries suggested that American expansion stories need not focus exclusively on male adventurers and violence. 8. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, 1979. The BBC produced this 7-part Cold War espionage drama, and Alec Guinness gave what many critics call the definitive performance of his later career as George Smiley, a retiring MI6 operative dragged back to uncover a Soviet agent within the agency's ranks. Directed by John Irvin and adapted from John le Carré's novel, the miniseries rejected glamorous spy fiction tropes entirely. Instead, it presented tradecraft as tedious drudgery marked by surveillance, interrogations, and moral erosion. Le Carré drew on his MI5 counterintelligence experience, and that authenticity permeated every episode. Guinness's performance relied on subtle physical mannerisms, cleaning glasses repeatedly, offering reticent glances, to convey intellectual power and emotional restraint rather than dramatic histrionics. Filming on 16mm imparted documentary grittiness that enhanced Cold War paranoia. Critics recognized this as television drama that trusted viewers' intelligence and patience. The miniseries earned Emmy nominations and British Academy Television Award recognition. Modern critics often call it the best spy thriller ever made, crediting its extended format for capturing complex plot mechanics without compression. Its methodical pacing and refusal to condescend influenced prestige television for decades. 9. Centennial, 1978-1979. James Michener's sprawling historical novel about Colorado history across 2 centuries became one of television's most ambitious undertakings when ABC adapted it into a 26-hour epic that aired sporadically across multiple nights. Richard Chamberlain appeared alongside recognizable supporting players in a production that demanded audiences' genuine commitment. The miniseries followed Colorado's development from the 1700s through the contemporary 1970s, essentially documenting Western mythology through a single geographic location. Production designers created massive sets depicting different historical periods, requiring extensive budgets and technical innovation. Critics noted the miniseries' inconsistent quality, sometimes compelling historical drama, occasionally melodramatic soap opera. Controversial casting choices drew attention. Some characters were played by actors who seemed miscast for their ethnic backgrounds. Despite critical reservations, millions of Americans tuned in across multiple nights, suggesting audiences possessed appetite for historical epics that television conventional wisdom suggested should fail. The runtime allowed exploration of themes that typical television structure couldn't accommodate. 10. Pearl, 1978. ABC commissioned this 3-part miniseries reconstructing the days surrounding the Pearl Harbor bombing through intimate personal dramas rather than military spectacle. Angie Dickinson, Dennis Weaver, Robert Wagner, and Leslie Ann Warren navigated Sterling Siliphant's screenplay, which balanced romantic entanglements with historical inevitability. Remarkably, the production incorporated actual action sequences from the 1970 war film Tora, 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 creating cinematic authenticity rare for television. Critics appreciated the emphasis on civilian experience rather than military heroism. The miniseries suggested that historical events mattered primarily through their impact on ordinary people navigating extraordinary circumstances. Production values matched theatrical releases, with location filming in Hawaii and elaborate set recreations. Silliphant's Oscar-winning screenwriting reputation ensured that dialogue possessed sophistication beyond typical television fare. The emphasis on intimate drama before catastrophe created emotional investment that pure action spectacle couldn't achieve. Audiences responded because Pearl understood that history becomes meaningful through personal connection rather than abstract commemoration. 11. The Jesus of Nazareth, 1977. Director Franco Zeffirelli created a reverent television miniseries depicting Jesus' life that achieved instant icon status when it aired over 2 weeks in 1977, with the concluding half-broadcast on Easter Sunday. Robert Powell's portrayal became definitive for millions, offering a humanized Jesus who experienced genuine emotion rather than sacred abstraction. The international cast included Olivia Hussey as Mary and Anne Bancroft as Mary Magdalene. A cumulative 90 million Americans tuned in during the broadcast period, making it one of television's most watched dramas. Zeffirelli brought cinematic language to religious narrative, using location filming in the Middle East to enhance authenticity. Critics noted the miniseries' emphasis on Jesus as teacher and healer rather than exclusively spiritual icon. The production attracted both religious viewers seeking respectful treatment and secular audiences appreciating historical narrative. Network executives worried about controversy, but discovered audiences possessed hunger for serious religious drama. The miniseries influenced subsequent biblical adaptations by establishing that television possessed capacity for sophisticated theological exploration. Powell's performance transcended religious affiliation. Viewers across belief systems recognized emotional authenticity. 12. Roots, 1977. This 8-part sensation aired over consecutive January nights in 1977 and fundamentally transformed television's relationship with American history. Adapted from Alex Haley's controversial 1976 novel, Roots followed Kunta Kinte from West African kidnapping through slavery's brutality and his descendants' struggle toward freedom. LeVar Burton's portrayal as young Kunta established him as a major talent. The miniseries broke ratings records, attracting viewers who rarely watch television drama. ABC worried the slavery depictions seemed too horrific and insisted on adding sympathetic, white characters like Ed Asner's slave ship captain. Despite network anxieties, the final episode on January 30, 1977, became the third most viewed television broadcast in world history. Roots sparked national conversation about slavery, African American history, and racial identity in ways no documentary or theatrical film had accomplished. Haley's novel faced controversy regarding historical accuracy. Harold Kurlander later sued, claiming Haley plagiarized passages from his work. Nevertheless, Roots proved television's capacity to create genuine cultural moments. The miniseries demonstrated that explorations of American racism needn't sanitize history. For many viewers, Roots became the dominant lens through which they understood slavery's reality and legacy. It established that television could challenge audiences rather than merely entertain them. 13. Holocaust, the story of the family. Weiss was revolutionary, but Roots was transformative. Actually, we need to reconsider. Roots was the most influential 1970s miniseries, but Holocaust demands recognition for its emotional and historical courage. Let me finalize the ranking. Roots transformed American consciousness about slavery and race. Holocaust challenged audiences to confront Nazi evil through intimate family tragedy. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy proved espionage television didn't require action heroics. These three represent the decade's genuine cultural impact. Here's the real question. Did 1970s miniseries possess more cultural weight than today's streaming limited series? Or did we lose something when television stopped airing events simultaneously across entire nations? Comment below with which of these miniseries you've actually watched. Better yet, tell me which 1970s miniseries I completely overlooked, because I know there are buried gems I missed. The miniseries format revolutionized television for one crucial decade. Let's discuss whether that golden age could ever return.